All right. Well, I was going to keep things quiet. What's going on, Will DeMarco? But I decided, the hell with it. I'm just going to go ahead and respond to this because I feel like it and I want to get some extra views. I had to delete a video because apparently someone didn't like that I used their footage, so I deleted it. I'm doing okay, Will DeMarco. Thanks for asking. But anyway, I'm to hell with what I was going to say. Who cares? It's just petty stuff. And I'm a petty person. But anyway, let's get into this video by none other than 3 Arrows, a.k.a. Daniel 3 Arrows. I don't know what his last name is. Now, there's a little bit of background. Apparently, he lived in South America. I can't think of which South American country, but he also lived in the United States for a brief time. And now, of course, he's moved back now he lives in his native Deutschland. He's a history major. He's more of a social democrat. He's not a leftist. He has made that quite clear, especially considering the death of Carl Liebknecht and what's her name? Anyway, you know what? Who cares? Nonetheless, let's go ahead and respond to this, Fei Hua.
I think there's a terrible angst on the land, a sense that something ugly is about to happen, an hour-to-hour feeling of nervous anticipation. Hunter S. Thompson wrote this years ago about the election of 1968, anticipating a victory by Richard Nixon. I thought about this sentence.
Yeah, the thing is that I will say this, is that anyone that's loosely associated with BreadTube, if they like somebody, then I have to not like them. The thing is that, actually, as I've gotten older, I will admit that I do not like, what is his name? What is his dumbass name? I can't think of that Jagoff, the comedian. What is his name? Let me take that up. Let me look it up right quick. What is that fool's name? Yeah. What is his name? That's it, George Carlin. Yeah. I cannot stand George Carlin. The thing is that George Carlin was a rapist. He, like I say, I know that's kind of a woke, scoldy type of thing to say, but it's like, George Carlin was not that great of a guy. Wow, he said some, somewhat profound stuff. And it's like, I know that, left-wing folks or even Soap Dems love George Carlin. And then the same thing is that you bring up good old Hunter S. Thompson, this sort of, who created this idea of gonzo journalism. Of course, Vosh also talked about this. We need more gonzo journalism. Get out of here. This is a guy who was, doing mescaline and all sorts of stuff and everything else like that. And he ended up killing himself. That's not really that much of a role model. And I know that, you're going to say that right-wing folks are role. I'm not going to say that either. What I'm going to say is that find some better fucking people to admire. Damn, that's all I got to tell you. So that's more of a boomer idea, but yeah, that's me. Yeah, George Carlin is for stupid people who want to feel smart. Yeah, Carlin was a rapist source. Well, yeah, Bernie killed Rosa. Yeah, exactly. Well, didn't know that about George Carlin. Well, I'm pretty sure that maybe he wasn't a rapist. I'll put it that way. You know what? But he did beat the hell out of his wife. So, but yeah, that's my take on it with George Carlin. And for a source, let me see here. George Carlin. Oops, I don't know how to spell anymore. Beat wife. There we go. Yeah, George Carlin beat wife. There we go. Yeah. And basically, I know people are going to say this because it's bad because it comes from George Carlin's daughter and we don't know for sure. And of course, everyone loves George Carlin. Oh, But that's fine. So There's my source. It's not really that great, but yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and cut into this video some more.
More and more in the last couple of weeks or months. It feels weird being at least somewhat engaged in political commentary at this specific moment in time. I struggled a bit finding something that I deem worth saying, something you might find useful to the current moment, but it didn't really work out. I already had read like 3 books for the last video I had planned before realizing that while I might find that topic interesting to talk about, the moment for that, isn't now. I want to be as efficient as I can with the time you guys give me, and I struggle to make that topic in particular worthy of that. Judging from the comments and messages I'm getting, quite a few in my audience share this feeling of tension when looking at US politics right now. Of course, the last 4 years or the time before that wasn't great. It did not feel particularly good reading the news then either, especially in situations where things could have gone a much different direction, like the US coming close to war with Iran, to name just one example. For many marginalized people in the US, that feeling is probably constant, given the current administration's approach to things like transgender rights, healthcare, or police brutality. I have the luck of currently not living in the country whose political landscape my channel largely revolves around.
Once again, so that's the line I was waiting for. I was waiting for him to say that. The thing is that he admits that he basically caters to Americans. Is that he is a German who makes videos for dumb Americans or for wannabe lefties that think that they're going to actually do something. So he admits that. At least give him that take. Yeah, you live in Germany, you're not going to die, my friend. Yeah, we don't have much time, guys. He really thinks his takes are the salvation of the world. Yeah, he really does.
But of course, we're all connected in a way. For instance, when the US pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, our far-right party here in Germany took that as a signal to voice more of their climate change denial.
Which far-right party? Are you saying AfD? Are you saying Alternative für Deutschland? Is that what you... Go ahead.
Some talking points. In German politics, it is sometimes said that everything that happens in the US occurs in Germany too, only 10 years later. I seriously hope that doesn't ring true for the upcoming decade, though.
How in the hell is that true? How in the hell is that true at all? As far as I know, with Germany, they still have fairly strong labor laws. While the unions aren't great, they still have functioning unions. I mean, what else are we talking about here? I mean, the United States, has gotten rid, or at least the United States Army has gotten rid of PT tests. I don't think the Bundeswehr, or the Heer, more specifically, the Army, has gotten rid of those yet. Like I say, I know that's nitpicky, and maybe it's just anecdotal, but I think that's just a retarded statement. I'm sorry to say it like that, but that's just more important, or more specifically, it is an ignorant view to be like, oh, well, anything that happened, is that what happens in America happens in Germany 10 years later. So we had a fascist government 10 years earlier. I thought that the United States was always a fascist nation. So what are you talking about? You know what I mean?
My apologies if I'm coming off as a bit of a doomer here, but seeing the most powerful person in the history of the planet denying...
No. I remember long ago. I remember when I was probably like in junior high, maybe even elementary school. And there was a question, maybe it was like the PSAT or something like that, but it's like, who is the most important person in the world? And of course, me being the dumb American, I said, well, yeah, the president of the United States. And I got that wrong, as far as I remember. It's like, that's not necessarily true that the president of the United States is the strongest person in the world. That's not true. That is, hugely overestimating the influence of the United States. While I say that the United States influences a lot of the world culturally, unfortunately, specifically when it comes to transgenderism, this and that, I feel like, and maybe some of this is cope, maybe some of this is, camouflage or whatever the case may be, but I really don't feel like the United States in general has all that much power. I really don't think that. I don't believe it. But, I mean, go ahead, I guess. I don't know. I know that there are other people on Twitter that will disagree with me probably if I said this take out loud, but you overestimate our power. Yeah.
To guarantee a peaceful transition of power and priming his followers to doubt.
See, the thing is, I don't like this bait. I'll just be honest with you. I don't like this bait. This idea that, oh, there's not going to be a peaceful transition. What is he going to do? Who is going to show up to defend him? The United States military isn't. Even if they put the National Guard or they put some other force out there, more than likely they'll just join, the so-called rebels and try to storm the White House, whatever. It doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, go ahead.
Any election results that does not have him as the winner. To doubt is even putting it too mild. It's seeing them as de facto illegitimate. That has me wondering if this is what it feels like when American democracy is circling the drain. And that's what
American democracy probably never really existed in any sort of sense. It was just democracy. It was lip service democracy. They didn't actually, that word democracy by this point doesn't mean very much to me, honestly, because it's just like whenever we hear that word, it's just like it's just code for, we're going to make it look like we're doing something important when in actuality we're just supporting, big business or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's just me.
What I wanted to talk about, because that feeling of nervous anticipation is justified. Although I should say, I don't think if there is a coup attempt, it will be like in the movies. Trump will not just declare the election illegitimate and have his political opponents arrested by the military or any scenario like that. I don't think that is very realistic. One reason for that is
let's go back for a minute.
Because that feeling of nervous anticipation is justified. Although I should
say, justified. It's justified, and then what does he say?
I don't think if there is a coup attempt, it will be like in the movies. Trump will not just declare the election illegitimate and have his political opponents arrested by the military or any scenario like that. I don't think that is very realistic.
That's not just something in the movies, though. I mean, same thing happened with Helicopter Man down in Chile, Salvador Allende, I believe, killed himself because he figured that he was going to be killed. So I don't think that's just a movie sort of thing. But yeah, go ahead.
One reason for that is that for this movement, compared to other authoritarian ones that came to power, the veneer of democratic legitimacy is essential. In Italy, the veneer of democratic legitimacy is essential. In Italy or Germany, democracy was framed by the right as a weak and ineffective form of government. Many of them argued for what they called a guided democracy, where you still had a voice, but one guy would take care of the stuff that had to be dealt with immediately. That approach worked on many people because the circumstances were different. But today, Trump coming out saying democracy is a weak form of government, I don't think that would fly with the majority of Americans. It would fly with some, but not many. Framing yourself as the voice of a majority of Americans still is important, and we see that all the time when Trump talks about the silent majority, right? If there will be an attempt to steal this election by the Republicans, it requires above all uncertainty. Uncertainty about which votes are legitimate and uncertainty about the margins between the two candidates. This starts with who has the sovereignty of interpretation. Is there someone who can definitively say X candidate is ahead by this amount of points and who most people believe?
Right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to wait for some points here, but I really don't think that he understands Germany and Italy in any way. I will say this: the more that I've seen from some people is that in general, the Italian fascists ended up basically just cucking themselves over to the monarchy, because obviously the monarchy was not overthrown. And you had basically kind of we're going to say these things actually worked, or, we're going to try to do things this way, but it didn't actually, we're not going to actually do it that way. And then you had, the Nazi Party basically just kind of, they still had to keep people happy. So they had to give lip service to a lot of the social democratic ideas that were preached about in the Weimar Republic, including drug use. Obviously Pervitin was a huge issue. I mean, obviously the drug of choice for, housewives and, soldiers and everything else in between. So this idea that, oh, well, democracy is dead, this and that, it's like, yeah, it became that way later on. But like I say, I'm not going to sit here and carry water for the Nazi Party. What I'm going to say is that ultimately politics can be influenced by other things. And I think that it's too simplified to be like, oh, well, Nazis immediately did this and they immediately, put everyone into concentration camps. It didn't work that way. But yeah, go ahead.
In the years before this election, Associated Press served this function. They had direct access to polling stations and gave a somewhat clear picture of the situation. This year, AP left the National Election Pool and is calculating the numbers directly for Fox and for the New York Times. Those left in the National Election Pool give their numbers to CNN and other TV stations. So the risk of different results making the rounds on election night is already higher than before. Republicans have, of course, been working overtime, delegitimizing mail-in ballots. And just to be clear on this, the reason why there is this much of a fuss about mail-in ballots is solely to create uncertainty. An authoritative report by the nonpartisan Brennan Center for Justice calculated the voter fraud rate in 3 elections between 0.000...
Wait a minute. You have to name I'm going to have to be a prig here for a minute. You don't mention which 3 elections. Was it a county election? Was it a national election? Was it... Because when they say 3 elections and then you say 0.00, it's like, okay, which election were you talking about and where? You got to give me some context, baby. Give me some context. Go ahead. And Tildeer, he doesn't give the context.
3% and 0.0025%. It is just a fig leaf for Republicans to launch a whole number of legal cases with the goal of throwing away votes in large numbers because more Democrats vote by mail than Republicans. They do this through purging voter rolls, tightening rules on provisional votes, banning the use of ballot drop boxes, or outlawing the counting of ballots postmarked by Election Day but arriving afterwards. Another tool is sabotaging the Postal Service by service cuts or upper management restructuring. To get a little more concrete on this, the Supreme Court just ruled that mail-in ballots in the state of Wisconsin only should be counted if they arrive before or on Election Day. If they are stamped on Election Day, that is not enough. The ruling in itself isn't that noteworthy, but the reasoning Justice Kavanaugh gave is. This comes courtesy of the New York Times. In his opinion, attached to the 5-3 ruling against the deadline extension in Wisconsin, Justice Kavanaugh wrote that Election Day mail-in deadlines were devised to avoid the chaos and suspicions of impropriety that can ensue if thousands of absentee ballots flow in after Election Day and potentially flip the results of an election. He added, those states also want to be able to definitively announce the results of the election on election night or as soon as possible thereafter. Justice Kavanaugh's statement mirrored in some ways Mr. Trump's efforts to suggest that only ballots counted by Election Day should decide the result, and more generally to push unfounded claims about widespread voter fraud. The words used by Justice Kavanaugh here are very telling, especially the section about mail-in ballots flipping the result of an election. It implies that mail-in ballots coming in after Election Day aren't part of the result. It is very concerning, to say the least, when you consider that in Wisconsin,
Sorry for all the dead air there. I'm just, I don't really have too much to say. Yeah, Jimmy Dore fact check. Yeah, exactly. Jimmy Dore proved that vote by mail fraud will be a real thing. Yeah, I mean, this has happened before. Like I say, there are plenty of people on both sides that will talk about the hanging chance of the 2000 election. He also mentions that, but yeah. Yeah, he's just a socialist. I mean, excuse me, he's a social democrat. Yeah. And Democrats claim that Russians are controlling the election. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous all around.
3,000 votes made the difference in 2016. A US election where the margins are very close and the results disputed is also not without precedent. In 1876, the Democratic candidate Samuel Tilden received 184 electoral votes, and the Republican Rutherford B. Hayes received 165, while 20 electoral votes from 4 states were unresolved. Both parties claimed victory in 3 of those 4 states, and the issue was only resolved through an informal deal between the parties. A more recent similar example would, of course, be the presidential election in 2000, where the Supreme Court stopped the recount of votes in Florida and thereby made George W. Bush the winner of the election. It doesn't invoke confidence in the Supreme Court thinking back to that disaster and knowing that 3 sitting Supreme Court justices worked for the side of Bush in that case.
So it's funny to me that he has to go all the way back to 1876. He doesn't talk about the contested. I mean, even that Mr. Beat, I was just watching a video of his talking about the election of 1860 and talking about how contested that was, or talking about whichever different election that you want to choose, whether it's, Teddy Roosevelt running, and under the Bull Moose Party or what, whichever. But it's just so ridiculous where it's like you had to go all the way back to 1876. You couldn't find something more relevant. It's just, it's also just so maddening to just be like, we know that this system is broken. Everyone knows it is. But everyone thinks that they have a better idea to fix it. Yeah, I mean, like I say, you go ahead.
Roberts, Kavanaugh, and now Amy Coney Barrett. That is not an accident. The goal of creating this amount of uncertainty and calling mail...
Hold on. I do have a question about who did Neil Gorsuch, who was he with? Because he was brought in by Donald Trump. Yeah, nominated by Donald Trump. You notice that he kind of, he talks about Amy Coney Barrett, Roberts, and but didn't mention Gorsuch. So also he was nominated by George W. Bush as well. And yet this is the guy who, once again, Native American law. Here we go. So July 2020, of course, we saw this Herrera v. Wyoming decision. And he's held that hunting rights in Montana and Wyoming granted by the U.S. government to the Crow people by an 1868 treaty were not extinguished by the 1890 grant of statehood to Wyoming. So we see here that he's very, that it doesn't make any sense to me. These so-called conservatives, are, are supporting, supported with the Yakima Nation in Eastern Washington. There's a city named Yakima. But once again, he doesn't talk about these details. And originalism, of course, Voss has talked about that as well, how originalism is bad and, the Constitution, this and that. But we need to stick to the Constitution, though. It just, it's maddening. Okay.
Ballots into question is delaying the calling of states until Safe Harbor Day, which is December 8th.
Yeah.
If that happens, theoretically speaking,
there's not.
the states themselves
there's
might
not a
decide
Discord
who
for
receives their electoral
action.
votes.
Someone could make
one. In case
one.
you didn't know, Republicans hold a majority in Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Although, admittedly, in a scenario like that, it becomes pretty hazy because the governors can also appoint electors. It would be a nightmare. But before we go any further, this is the absolute worst case scenario. Biden might also win by such a significant margin that the Republicans are denied this election meddling route. That's entirely possible. Still, I also worry that a Biden landslide might cause many left-leaning people to stop caring about politics, which would be bad. The damage already done to...
Which would be bad? Oh, my goodness. I mean, the thing is that Joe Biden is not going to do that much stuff different than Trump. All right? It's like, the thing is, I mean, even people like Caleb Maupin have covered this. Joe Biden would probably not do anything different with Iran. He probably wouldn't do that much. He would probably be worse for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. In terms of the economy, what would he do? Not much. So, it's just ridiculous, this type of stuff. But yeah, I'm sorry that that's my only comment, but let's go ahead and continue.
To American institutions will be a concern for the left for decades to come. We don't even have to mention the Supreme Court. Just look at how many judges Trump put on the federal courts. This comes courtesy of a Financial Times article titled, "How Trump Has Already Transformed America's Courts." Mr. Trump's 4 years in office have allowed Republican lawmakers to dramatically reshape the U.S. judicial system by installing right-wing judges at a pace almost unmatched in American history. Mr. Trump's judges, carefully selected for their ideological bona fides, have already begun to reshape U.S. law in a more conservative direction on issues as wide-ranging as gun control, voting rights, environmental protections, abortion, and immigration. This judiciary will be a bulwark against progressive change in the US, be it on voting rights, labor, or social issues. It is not hard to imagine what difference a judiciary like this makes in an even more heated political climate. We don't even have to imagine, because that is a problem Germany also had in its interwar years. In fact, the first German democracy had a psychotically far-right judiciary. The stats on this are a bit iffy because a left-wing statistician collected them.
You gotta love it. So he said that a psychotically right-wing, but then he immediately follows it up with, well, this information is a bit iffy because it was brought about by a left-wing person. Ugh. You just undone everything you said. It's like, a psychotic right-wing court, but this information may not be that good. So it's like, okay, so why the fuck did you mention it then? You see what I'm saying? Why did you even say it if you aren't even sure about this information that you got? You see what I'm saying? This data that you got about the Weimar Republic and the courts being so, psychotically right-wing. What? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. You missed a lot. It's okay, Temujin. You can watch it again. Yeah. It's okay, Temujin. It won't matter that much. Yeah. Yeah. I hate this guy. Yeah. It's an open joke in America that JFK was elected through fraud. Yeah. Since we are talking about this, would you be willing to review The Darkest Winter video by Last American Vagabond? I think he got taken down off YouTube, didn't he? I could take a look. I mean, sure, we can, but yeah.
But the general trend very much holds true. Richard Evans also brings this up in his Third Reich trilogy. Case in point, 22 political murders committed by left-wing offenders from 1990.
I'll go ahead and simplify this for you. I will let you listen to the rest of it, but basically what he says is that the left wing didn't kill as many people as the right wing did in Weimar Germany, basically. That's what he's going to say. He's going to try to make a comparison to today to say, well, it's the same type of thing. I don't really get... And also the fact that he says, oh, yeah, well, anything that happens in America affects Germany 10 years later. It's like, huh? It's like were riots that bad in the United States 10 years prior to 1990? I mean, let me think. 1909. I don't know. Go ahead.
19 to 1922 led to 38 convictions, including 10 executions and prison sentences, averaging 15 years apiece. By contrast, according to this statistician, the 354 political murders committed by right-wing offenders led to 24 convictions, no executions at all, and prison sentences averaging a mere 4 months apiece. 23 of those right-wing murderers who confessed to their crimes were acquitted by the courts regardless. That is not to say that all damage is already done and the election doesn't matter, because there is quite a material difference between a Biden and a Trump presidency, short-term or long-term. And
does he give any reasons for that? Does he say that, Joe Biden is going to, is going to start prosecuting the Proud Boys or to declare them a terrorist organization? Is he going to, improve relations with Europe again? I mean, name one thing he's going to do. You know what? Actually, heck with it. We're going to go on Joe Biden's website. We're going to go ahead and take a look through his policies. Why not? Because I feel like that's probably more realistic. So once we're done watching this, we're going to briefly go over Joe Biden's website and see what he actually promises.
And if you can see that difference, I think you are highly misguided, to say the least. However, I believe that this is mostly an online phenomenon. If you're looking for advice on what to do in one of the scenarios I just described, I'd highly recommend the work of the folks over on the Majority Report. They have discussed this in much more detail and also possible responses, including but not limited to a general strike. My apologies if you were hoping for something more positive.
The general strike thing makes less and less difference. Makes, as years go by, a general strike means nothing. The thing is, they tried a general strike, what was it, last year, right? Or what was it, like a few months ago? That's what E. American Johnson and all these other bread tubers were talking about. And that general strike did nothing. They were like, oh, well, all us YouTube creators, all us BreadTube creators, we're not going to upload videos on the general strike day, because, also go out there and vote for Corbyn. And of course, it's ironic because now Corbyn is being kicked out of the Labour Party due to anti-Semitism. But yeah, it didn't go anywhere. You think a general strike across the United States, you know what people's response would be? It's like, you going to pay my rent? You going to pay my car note? You going to pay my child support payment I got to do? That's what people are going to be saying for a general strike. It's like if you ask, your average McDonald's worker, whatever the case may be, it's like, hey, you gonna pay for something from me? And they're gonna be, well, no, but you need to do this so that we can stop fascism. Well, fuck you. That's their response. I got to go to work. Get the hell out of my way.
Regarding the election, but I'm looking at this as nervous as everyone else is. I do hope, though, that this video ages horribly and I can unlist it in a couple of weeks. One upside is that Biden is currently favored to win, and the scenario of a Trump landslide seems like an incredible long shot. But we'll see. Me personally, I will not be live streaming on election night like many others are, but there will be a, I guess, watch party in my Discord where I and other like-minded folks will play video games, probably drink a lot, and watch the states come in. You can find the link for that in the description.
Joe Biden.
That's about all I have election-wise. One good thing did come out of my frustration with current US politics, though. I finally landed on a topic to kick off my history podcast with. Many political commentators who try to find a word for this sense of dread about upcoming political developments land on Weimar. I've lost count about how often I have seen someone compare the US right now to Germany before the Nazi Revolution.
People have been saying that for years. Where the hell have you been?
Myself even numerous times, including
Wignats make the whole Weimarica argument all the time. It's ridiculous. And it lacks bite because people have used it so much, it doesn't have the same punch. It's the same thing where people just say that, America's going to be a fascist nation. It's like, well, you hear it so much that you're kind of desensitized to it, That's what happens when you oversaturate using of phrases or anything else,
In this video, historical comparisons are never perfect, but I do feel like it is worth having an idea of how German democracy died in the current political
democracy died. See, the thing is, hold on. I thought this the first time I watched it through. This is the second time for me. But the first time I watched this through, I thought, when he got to this part, I'm saying, It's like, well, I mean, you're a social democrat. But it's like, if something like that does happen in the United States and we have a Weimar, then eventually you're going to get an American German Democratic Republic. You're going to get a socialist America, at least half of it. Well, it wasn't exactly. It's probably more like 2/3, 1/3, roughly speaking, for West Germany and then East Germany. But still, I mean, so if you want, an American Democratic Republic, an ADR, then I guess continue on this path, right? But I know you'll say, I didn't mean it that. I know what he'll say. I didn't mean it that way. No. American democracy, yeah. Yeah, I don't use Discord really that much. I used to go there for memes, but I don't really mess with Discord that much. But by all means, if you can't find an anti-Vosh action, please, you can go ahead and start one. Yeah, please do. But yeah, I don't really mess with Discord that much.
Moment. So if you're looking for some additional content, you can check out my podcast called The Iron Dice.
Shill, 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 shill.
It's an immersive history podcast narrated by yours truly. The first series of episodes will take you through the political struggles of Weimar Germany, starting at the collapse of the old Bismarckian Empire at the end of World War I, over the open carnage in the streets of Berlin.
The Bismarckian Empire? Hold on, Biggin. Hold on. You can't go around mixing things up like that. You can't go around mixing stuff up like that. Because the thing is, I didn't even watch this bit, but the Hohenzollern family, or the Hohenzollern regime, I'll put it that way. The the House of Hohenzollern, excuse me. Man, I can't get my pronunciation today, sorry. But the Hohenzollern House is different than Bismarck. Those are two different things. You do realize that, right? I mean, I'm sure that, Otto von Bismarck was probably more of a monarchist, this and that. But it's like, bro, you cannot compare Bismarck and Kaiser Wilhelm II and his, and his legacy and all that. But you can't do that. Those are two different things. That's like saying, oh, well, I'm going to compare, and say the fall of Bismarck. It's like the fall of Jeffersonian America in 2020. No, they're two different things.
All the way.
I'm not even a historian, and I wouldn't be that reckless. Yeah, but wasn't the German Empire State socialist? It was loosely socialist. It was kind of like lip service socialism in a certain way, where they allowed, a bit more control and everything else like that. But basically, that was to prevent a revolution. I know that Marx has written about that. Yeah, I'm on fast forward to catch up. It's all good. Yeah, in all honesty, I'd rather listen to Julie calling me a filthy Slav than some liberal history rewriting. Exactly. Yeah. Prussian socialism isn't the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. There are two different things, though.
To the dawn of Germany's darkest hour. You can find that on my second YouTube channel or everywhere podcasts can be found. And with that, thank you sincerely for sticking with me, and especially to my patrons. The next video will be about German QAnon, which sadly is a thing that exists. I'll see you then. Stay safe and have a good one.
Okay. Let's look at Joe Biden. Let's see what he actually, what's his vision? Let's go ahead and see here. I don't care about looking for voting, this and that. Okay, all of Joe Biden's plans. Yeah, let's look at all of Joe Biden's plans. Okay, Joe Biden's plan to beat COVID-19. Let's read it. Let's read this. This is the first time I think I've actually looked at a website like this, because I know it's bullshit. And I know Joe Biden is not going to, yeah. In the midst of the growing health crisis, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Listen to science. Ensure public health decisions are informed by public health professionals. Restore trust, transparency, common purpose, and accountability to our government. Okay. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, listen to science basically translates to, we're going to give scientists more power. You're going to create a separate class for scientists. I mean, that's what that could mean. Maybe I'm being disingenuous, but still. Ensure public health decisions are informed by public health professionals. Okay, so you're going to give more power to county health departments and everything else like that, right? Okay. Restore trust, transparency, common purpose, and accountability to our government. We know that's not completely true. Especially considering that, a common purpose. It's like we can't even see eye to eye on what we should do about, taxes versus what we're going to do, yeah. So this idea that we all have a common purpose, yeah, no. It's nice to say. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a 7-point plan to beat COVID-19 and get our country back on track. Fix Trump's test and tracing fiasco to ensure all Americans have regular, reliable, and free testing. Double the number of drive-through testing sites. Invest in next-generation testing, including at-home tests and instant tests, so we can scale up our testing capacity by orders of magnitude. Stand up a pandemic testing board like Roosevelt's War Production Board. It's how we produce tanks, planes, uniforms, and supplies in record time, and it's how we can produce and distribute tens of millions of tests. All right. Establish a U.S. public health jobs corps to mobilize at least 100,000 Americans across the country with support from trusted local organizations in communities most at risk to perform culturally competent approaches to contact tracing and protecting at-risk populations. At least 100,000. I mean, to me, that sounds like you're going to get nurses and everything else. Because, yeah, you can't just, hire any geek off the street, as they say. Fix personal protective equipment problems for good. What does this mean? Okay. Will take responsibility rather than leave states, cities, tribes, and territories to fend for themselves and focus on producing more of these critical supplies in the United States. He will fully use the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of mask, face shields, and other PPE so that the national supply of personal protective equipment exceeds demand. Like I say, we've already pretty much handled that. I mean, now people can get stuff from anywhere. I mean, mostly, to be fair, a lot of that is produced in China, but still, it's like, another PPE so that the national supply, okay. Build now toward a future flexible American-sourced and manufactured capability to ensure we are not dependent on other countries in a crisis. Provide clear, consistent, evidence-based national guidance for how communities should navigate the pandemic. And the resources for schools, small businesses, okay. Plan for the effective, equitable distribution of treatments and vaccines. Protect older Americans and others at high risk. Rebuild, expand, and the defenses that Trump has dismantled to predict, prevent, and mitigate pandemic threats, including those coming from China. So once again, they both still agree that it comes from China. Remember all that fear-mongering earlier on where it's just like, this is the yellow peril, this and that. They both still believe that it came from China. So ultimately, not much has changed there. Okay, let's see. Number 7. Implement mask mandates nationwide by working with governors and mayors by asking the American people to do what they do best. Oh boy, experts say that 95% of Americans wear masks between now and December. We can save almost 70,000 lives. Every American to wear a mask when they are around people outside their household. Every governor to make that mandatory in their state. I can guarantee you that there are going to be some states that are going to catch hell for that. And if Joe Biden thinks that he's going to be like a President Johnson and just, browbeat people, I'm weary about that. Yeah. Local authorities to make it mandatory to buttress their state orders. Okay. So that's the COVID stuff. Let's see what he thinks about, what other issue? Is economic recovery plan for working families. Okay, let's take a look. America has been knocked down. The great unemployment is higher than it was in the Great Recession. Millions have lost jobs, hours, pay, healthcare, or the small business they started through no fault of their own. The pandemic is also laid bare. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's go ahead and cut to the chase here. What's he gonna provide us? What's he gonna promise us? Provide state, local, and tribal governments with the aid they need so educators, firefighters, and other essential workers are not being laid off. Nice to say, but ultimately there will be loopholes. Extend COVID crisis and unemployment insurance to help those who are out of work. Provide a comeback package for Main Street businesses and entrepreneurs. This is a bit off, isn't it? I mean, to say that, okay, we're going to provide comeback packages for Main Street businesses and entrepreneurs. How big is that package going to be? And also, what do you consider Main Street? Once again, that's very vague language. And Biden will immediately put people to work by enlisting them in his public health jobs corps. Okay. Build our economy back better. Mobilize American manufacturing and innovation to ensure that the future is made in America and in all of America. Nice to say, but a lot of American manufacturing is already gone, and a lot of that innovation is probably coming from, maybe in parts of California or other places in the world, but yeah. Mobilize American ingenuity to build a modern infrastructure and an equitable, clean energy future. Mobilize Americans' talent and a heart to build a 21st century caregiving and education workforce. Mobilize across the board to advance racial equality in America. As president, he will pursue a dedicated agenda. Building Back Better means an updated social construct that treats American workers and working families as essential at all times, not just in times of crisis. Higher wages, stronger benefits, and fair and safe workplaces. As Biden has said, let's not just praise them, let's pay them a decent wage. Like I say, he really, like I said, this is what the bourgeoisie has to do. And they have to, when they see these riots go on, they see threats like Bernie Sanders. This isn't me sucking off Bernie Sanders, but it's like this $15 per hour wage is very much a Bernie Sanders influence type of thing. But yeah, this starts with passing the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, providing public service and federal government workers with bargaining rights, and taking other steps to make it easier for workers to organize unions and collectively bargain. I have a feeling that this is going to be put in the trash once he gets into the office, yeah. And lowering costs for care for prescription drugs. Prescription drugs, excuse me. I know an American that says prescription. I know it's prescription, but yeah. Building Back Better means helping small businesses and entrepreneurs come out on the other side. We've seen the second bailout in 12 years for big corporations on Wall Street, and we've seen Trump administration provide all the tools necessary to help big businesses. Biden will ensure that corporate America finally pays their fair share in taxes, puts their workers and communities first. Today, Biden is releasing details on his first part of his agenda with a separate fact sheet on his strategy for manufacturing innovation to ensure the future is made in America and all of America by American workers. All right. See what else he has here. What else does he have? Let's see here. So we did that. Let's see here. Healthcare. Strengthen tribal nations. I think I've read this already, but yeah. 3.5. Yeah, talking about the Native Americans. 3.5 times the rate. Like I say, he gives a lot of good lip service. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, listening to this in the gym. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, Slavs were some use when they dealt with Circassians. Yeah. Yeah, nonetheless, but he's sincere with his beliefs, yeah. Monarcho-communism, yeah. Seems to be that when it comes to civilian measures, each state seems to behave as independent companies. Yeah, that's true. I live near Indians. They are not noble. I'm gonna just not say too much about it. Let me go ahead and check this right quick here. Okay, let me. You know what? Since he's on, let's go ahead and see what. Let's hear what Joey Biden has to say. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's still. All right, we'll stick around for a little bit so that we can figure out what Joe Biden's going to say here and what he's. Yeah. Is he going to start? Yeah, here we go. All right, we'll go ahead and watch a little bit of this. We're not going to watch every minute.
Teresa Greenfield.
Oh. I'm going to turn off their chat because that's annoying. It's always funny seeing the folks that do the sign language. That's hilarious.
Are you guys ready to send Joe Biden to the White
House? She's hopped up on goofballs.
Well, I want to thank all the volunteers that are here today.
For the American Solidarity Party.
Across the
think
state,
I have. I'm not
Democrats
sure. Yeah.
who are working so hard to elect candidates up and down the ticket here. We've just got 4 days until this election, and I am so fired up because this is a race we can win.
Why is she laughing? Why are you laughing? Are you nervous?
And when we win it, when we flip this seat, we're going to take back the majority of the United States Senate. Honk for that.
Please honk. Please honk.
You know, for those of you who I haven't met, I'm Teresa Greenfield. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a military mom. I'm a scrappy farm kid, and I know the price of corn.
Laughing is, yeah.
You know, Iowans are going through really tough times right now, and I think these are going to be some of the most consequential times of our life. With the pandemic, the recent derecho, farm bankruptcies at an 8-year high, you know, families struggling to afford.
Let me get the mail right quick. Go ahead. Just listen to this. Oh, shit. Yep, the video went out. Oh.
Tough times. I've been through a whole lot of struggles myself. You know, I grew up during the farm crisis when interest rates were 21%. Bankruptcy auctions were going on every single week, and farm families were ruined. I had to scrap through a lot of part-time jobs to put myself through college. I worked hard. And when I was widowed at the age of 24, my first husband, Rod, he was a lineman for the power company. He was an IBEW member, a union member. Can I get some honks for the unions, please? Well, when Rod died in a workplace accident, that left me a single mom with a 13-month-old and another one on the way. And it was Social Security, and it was his hard-earned union benefits that kept the boys and I out of poverty, gave me a second chance to get back on my feet and rebuild a career and provide for my family. And I know everybody wants the dignity of providing for their family. So when Senator Joni Ernst talks about privatizing Social Security, about going behind closed doors to gut Social Security, I said, no way, and I got in this fight. I want grannies across this state to know.
No, your laughing is annoying, honey. I'll just say that right now, okay? I don't care how much of an Iowan you are, because you know about the price of corn, gee golly gosh. Oh, gee golly gosh, I know the price of corn, you know. Oh, golly me, you know.
Now, we've been traveling the state. We've done over 350 campaign events around the state. And while people are talking about healthcare and they're talking about the farm economy, more than anything, they want the divisiveness to end. They want the bickering and the name calling to come to an end. You know, in 2014, Senator Joni Ernst, she told us she'd be independent, she'd be different, and she'd make them squeal. Do you guys remember that? Honk if you remember squealing.
What the hell is this crap?
Well, here's the deal. She's had 6 years, and she failed Iowa. She forgot about us. She has sold us out for her big corporate donors. Folks, she's taken over $200,000 from big.
Let's see. Let me see right quick. What's the Trump campaign? What's the Trump event look like? Let's see here.
Yeah, although, actually, that's turning out to be true. We can't get him. We got to think about that one. He's endorsing Joe Biden. But you know who's endorsing me? You know who likes me? The Teamsters like me, and everybody, all of the workers like me. Maybe he won't run. I don't think he'd win anyway if he ran. Biden even supported the outrageous fuel economy standards. You know that. That's where every little ounce they suck for half a glass of gasoline, which we have plenty of right now. We have so much, we don't know what the hell to do with it, right? We had gasoline at one point selling for so little that if you took a barrel of gasoline, they gave you $36 with the barrel.
Okay. Well, I'm going to watch these on my own, but yeah, vibing, yeah. Campaign dripping, yeah. I don't think I could take, yeah, please stop the speech. Yeah, okay, no problem. Honk, you super predators, yeah. Exactly. Okay. Well, you know what? I think we've reached our limit there. I just wanted to show that video of 3 arrows and just see how ridiculous it is. Apologies if I didn't make that good of an argument against his video. I just watched him. I was like, oh, bruh, what are you doing? I hate when non-Americans in general want to, yeah. Biden and Trump are jokes. I wouldn't vote for either. That's fair. That is fair, Rod Dog. That is fair. I wouldn't care about either one, to be honest with you. Voting is just cringe at this point. Get ready for just learn about the people around you and see who you think is going to be the new warlord. That's what you need to worry about. If you live in a pretty big county, learn who those folks are. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not American. Okay. Yeah. So are you going to check out, The Darkest Winter? Okay. I'll go ahead and check it out. Why not? If I've given the option, I will go ahead and do it. What was it? Darkest Winter? Okay. Darkest Winter. Who was it? I know who you're talking about. I have seen his videos before. Let me see. Is it on BitChute? Let me see. Is it on BitChute? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Okay. It's pretty short. Okay. All right. I'll play along, though. Conscious resistance.
Fall surge and perhaps an even.
Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
Britain is braced for a dark winter as new measures are deployed to stem a surge of coronavirus.
New signs of a fall surge and perhaps an even more painful winter as coronavirus cases soar in the U.S.
We're about to go into a dark winter. A dark winter.
This message is for anyone who has concerns about the upcoming U.S. elections, the potential for chaos and civil unrest, or those who fear what a second wave of COVID-19 could mean for the future of humanity. If you have found this message on your own, please share it with your friends and family. If someone you care about recommended this to you, please watch it and do so with an open mind. We are in the last few months of a tumultuous year, and it appears that there might be more unprecedented events on the way. As we near election 2020, it's important to step back and analyze the potential plans of the predator class. Specifically, it's important to understand a number of recent government simulations and exercises. First, let's look at the exercise known as Event 201. 1 year ago, on October 18, 2019, the Bill & Melinda Gates Foundation partnered with the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and the World Economic Forum on a high-level pandemic exercise known as Event 201. Okay. Event 201 simulated how the world would respond to a fictional coronavirus pandemic known as CAPS, which swept around the planet. The simulation imagined 65 million people dying, mass lockdowns, quarantines, and censorship of alternative viewpoints under the guise of fighting disinformation, and even floated the idea of arresting people who question the pandemic narrative.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic.
Coincidentally, one of the players involved with Event 201 was Dr. Michael Ryan, the head of the World Health Organization's team responsible for the international containment and treatment of COVID-19.
Okay.
Dr. Michael Ryan has called for looking into families to find potentially sick individuals and isolate them from their families. Due to the vast web of connections between Bill Gates and nearly every organization connected to the COVID-19 fight, a growing number of researchers are questioning the motivations of Gates and other officials involved in the Event 201 exercise. Crimson Contagion and Clade X. Another important exercise was known as Crimson Contagion and simulated an outbreak of a respiratory virus originating from China. From August 13 to August 16, 2019, Trump's Department of Health and Human Services, headed by Alex Azar, partnered with numerous national, state, and local organizations for the exercise. According to the results of the October 2019 draft report, the spread of the novel avian influenza named H7N9 resulted in 110 million infected Americans, 7.7 million hospitalizations, and 586,000 deaths. Another simulation known as Clade X took place on May 2018. This event examined the response to a pandemic resulting from the release of a fictional virus known as Clade X. In the simulation, the virus was released by a terror group called A Brighter Dawn. As the outbreak spread through the United States, the participants asked what would be needed if the president issued a federal quarantine, noting that the authorities would need to, quote, determine the level of force authorized to maintain quarantine. The Clade X exercise also resulted in the federal government nationalizing the healthcare system. The leaders of these controversial pandemic simulations that took place before the coronavirus crisis have long-standing connections to the U.S. intelligence and U.S. Department of Defense. Even more troubling is that key players in the exercises, specifically Event 201 and Clade X, share a common history in another biowarfare simulation known as Dark Winter. The Darkest Winter. The Dark Winter exercise took place in June 2001, only months before the 9/11 attacks. This exercise took place at Andrews Air Force Base in Camp Springs, Maryland, and involved several congressmen, a former CIA director, a former FBI director, government insiders, and privileged members of the press. The exercise simulated the use of smallpox as a biological weapon against the American public. During the Dark Winter exercise, authorities attempted to stop the spread of dangerous misinformation and unverified cures, just like with the Event 201 simulation. Dark Winter further discusses the suppression and removal of civil liberties, such as the possibility of the president to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow the military to act as law enforcement upon request by a state governor, as well as the possibility of martial rule. The script says martial rule may, quote, include, but are not limited to, prohibition of free assembly, national travel ban, quarantine of certain areas, suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, and or military trials in the event that the court systems become...
I'm going to speed this up a here, okay? Apologies if you don't like me to do that, but I'm kind of getting sleepy. Okay.
Dysfunctional. What is important to know is that Dark Winter was largely written and designed by Tara O'Toole and Thomas Inglesby of the Johns Hopkins Center, along with Randy Larson and Mark Demir of the Analytic Services Institute for Homeland Security. O'Toole, Inglesby, and Larson were directly involved in the response to the alleged anthrax attacks, which took place in the days after September 11, 2001. These individuals personally briefed Vice President Cheney on Dark Winter. Coincidentally, Event 201 was co-hosted by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, which is currently led by Dark Winter co-author Thomas Inglesby. Tara O'Toole was also a key player in the Clade X simulation. The name for the exercise comes from a statement made by Robert Kadlec, a veteran of the George W. Bush administration and a former lobbyist for military intelligence and intelligence contractors. In the script, Kadlec states that the lack of smallpox vaccine for the U.S. population means that it, quote, could be a very dark winter for America.
Indeed, it means it could be a very dark winter for America.
Kadlec is now currently leading the HHS's COVID-19 response and was also involved in the Trump administration's 2019 Crimson Contagion exercises. Eerily, Kadlec's statements in the 2001 exercise were recently repeated nearly word for word by Richard Bright, former director of Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. Bright was recently celebrated as a whistleblower who attempted to hold the Trump administration accountable during the COVID-19 battle. However, while speaking in front of Congress, Bright stated,
without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
Now, maybe Bright is simply a concerned scientist warning about the potential for more sick people, but his use of the phrase darkest winter is hard to ignore here. When hearing the statements from Kadlec and Bright, we ought to consider the corporate media's promotion of a potential second wave of COVID-19. Bill Gates and other influential pundits and health authorities have consistently warned about a second wave, which was slated to arrive in the fall of 2020. As of mid-October 2020, reports are beginning to come in that cases are on the rise. This is what makes the statement from Richard Bright all the more concerning. This leads us to a number of recent simulations of the 2020 U.S. election, which have resulted in chaos and potential civil war. It would be easy to dismiss these exercises as politically driven fantasy if the people involved had not already publicly advised their candidates not to concede the election under any circumstances. Most recently, media reports indicated the Transition Integrity Project held a number of exercises simulating what might happen in the event that Donald Trump loses the 2020 election but refuses to leave office. The TIP itself is a secretive group made up of never-Trump neocon Republicans and Democrats associated with the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton. The Boston Globe reported that the TIP met
one gal has some big eyes
between Election Day on November 3rd and Inauguration Day on January 20th, 2021. The exercises state that, quote, Trump and his Republican allies used every apparatus of government, the Postal Service, state lawmakers, the Justice Department, federal agents, and the military to hold on to power, and Democrats took to the courts and the streets to try to stop it. The TIP envisioned one scenario where Trump wins and Biden refuses to concede, and instead asks for a recount and makes several demands, including to give statehood to Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, and divide California into 5 states. In the exercises, Joe Biden is played by John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign manager, and the chief of staff to former President Bill Clinton. The simulations essentially end in a constitutional crisis where there's no clear president and the Supreme Court or possibly the military play a deciding role. This unprecedented event could be disastrous for American life, as it is very likely that activists from both sides of the vote would take to the streets to protest what they believe is a theft by their opponents. And if you think protests and fights between extreme leftists and extreme right-wingers are contentious now,
sorry. Just takes a while to
wait until
load,
they both
folks.
feel shafted during the presidential election. Those opposed to Trump will claim Biden won and Trump is attempting to steal the election and create a fascist dictatorship. The Trump supporters will say the satanic radical leftist Democrats are attempting a coup to establish a communist police state. The result will be neighbor turning against neighbor, family members disowning one another, and some political activists may escalate their tactics from protest to violence. Other groups were similarly engaged in war games that predicted complete chaos in the United States on election day, as well as the imposition of martial law.
Okay, this bit I feel like I got to be careful about because there have already deaths that have occurred, particularly with, Michael Reinhold and then Michael Reinhold's death and everything else. And of course, with Kyle Rittenhouse as well. But yeah.
This includes the Operation Blackout simulations conducted by the U.S.-Israeli company Cyber Reason. The company has considerable ties to the U.S. and Israeli intelligence community. Operation Blackout involved hackers taking control of city buses around the U.S., crashing into voters waiting in line at polling stations, hacked traffic lights causing accidents, and the release of deepfakes to manipulate the public. The simulation resulted in the cancellation of the 2020 election and the imposition of martial law. While Donald Trump continues to stoke the flames of division and uncertainty surrounding election 2020, the establishment is also preparing for the possibility of martial law in response to this chaos. Meanwhile, the public is being prepared for a second wave of COVID-19 infections, which could lead to the foreshadowed darkest winter. While I don't care to install fear, I do encourage everyone to heed these warnings and be prepared for potential unrest in the days and weeks following the election. Are you prepared? In conclusion, I believe we may have a narrow window of time to inform our friends and family and motivate them to prepare for what may be on the horizon. We can spend our time attempting to convince them of the lies of COVID-19. We can also try to educate them about the numerous exercises predicting chaos and civil unrest across the United States. As important as education is in this information war, now might be the time to focus our energy on helping our families be prepared for what may come. Rather than attempting to convince them to see what you see or believe what you believe, perhaps we can simply help keep them safe until they can clearly see the writing on the wall. Again, if you are hearing of these exercises and topics for the first time, please listen with an open mind. I also want to emphasize that I don't say these words in hopes of inspiring fear or stress. In fact, I hope that this analysis can paint a clear enough picture of the grim reality that we are facing so that we may act. It is only by honestly facing our circumstances that we can hope to influence and change the path of humanity. This is a historic time to be alive, and we have the opportunity to play a powerful role. It's time to shake off the shackles and expose those who seek to hold us back for their own sick purposes.
Okay. Well, my take is this. I'm not going to sit here and disbelieve it, but notice the language that's used by these sorts of folks. They say, be prepared, this and that. It's very vague. Like I said, this is always the problem that I have with truthers and folks like that. They stay very vague about what should be done. It's like, well, prepare your family members, this and that. They don't say anything about getting, starting a militia. They don't, like I say, maybe this is Fed posting, but it's very vague in their responses of their answers. They have done their research, but in terms of what people should actually do, they suddenly turn coward, at least in my opinion. They suddenly turn like, well, it's up to you to decide what to do, but we're not responsible. So yeah, that's my take. Yeah. Try to convince your grandparents who watch TV all day, COVID is fake. Yeah. So like I say, I don't disagree with what they say. I don't disagree at all. But the thing is, like I say, is that they very loosely, they very vaguely say what you should do. And I think that's more dangerous, dare I say, than any sort of, group like the Proud Boys or whatever the case may be, who at least are together as a group. Whereas this guy is he's vague posting. That's all he's doing. Just vaguely saying, well, you need to help your families, this and that. It's like, okay, I don't disagree with that. But where do we go from there? And like I say, that's always my feeling about truthers and whatnot, especially at least in the United States. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but they're very, these are intelligent folks, but ultimately they want a job as well. And that has to be put into perspective. So yeah. Do I disagree with what they're saying? I'll repeat this again. Do I disagree with what they're saying? Absolutely not. But their responses and their solutions are very vague. But that's my view. Yeah. Spread the word, guys. Exactly. I don't disagree. Yeah. California, 6 states. Yeah. So like I say, but yeah, basically my response is that I don't disagree. I've repeated myself enough. I apologize. But it's like, I take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so let's take a look at this American Solidarity platform, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Okay, so let's look at this here right quick. Okay, Christian democratic values, life and family. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Our party is founded on an unwavering commitment to defend life and promote policies that are intrinsic. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to read through every single bit here. Whatever to prevent the tragedy of suicide, this and that. Okay. Family. Natural family founded on the marriage of one man, one woman. Okay. American Solidarity Party advises for affordable, diverse, and well-rounded educational options. Okay. Local school systems should reconsider the overuse of technology in the classroom. Yeah. When offered, should be required to include accurate information on prenatal development, the risk of hormonal contraceptives, and the scientific evidence that abortion takes a human life. Okay. Civil rights. Sorry. Religious liberty and civil rights. First Amendment prohibition. Criminal justice. I'll go ahead and drop this link in just in case anyone doesn't want to read this, but I will go ahead and take a look at that. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Red Dindonian. Like I say, but that's, yeah, I will say is that I don't disagree with these folks, but it's always vague posting. It's just another sense of, they don't have an ideology. And unfortunately, I would say that some of these folks that say everything has an ideology is true. Just as, the thing is, this is the problem that I have, is that they try to outline these things and say, oh, well, all these evil businesses and, the globalists and all this type of thing. But yet they don't say that it's enforced by liberalism. I've hardly ever seen a conspiracy theorist they don't really, they don't mention these words. So, like I say, do I have anything against them? No, but these are the folks that are going to be hiding in the background when an actual revolution does take place. These are the folks that are going to be like, well, so-and-so got paid by this person, so they're not good. And it's like, ultimately, they will be a mouthpiece for somebody else. That's really what it is. And that is that truthers today are just folks that will align with whoever is going to give them money. But I hate to say that, but it's true. Let's see, criminal justice. Drug addiction remains a social harm. Drug enforcement should focus on distribution and production. Funds currently expended on the war on drugs should be prevented towards prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation. I'm not going to read about the P word, economics. Distributism, okay. Bloated, too big to fail multinational. Like I say, you got to have some people that are willing to really lay down the law on corporations. And a lot of folks don't have the stomach for it. I really do think that's the truth. And there aren't a lot of people out there right now that have the stomach for it. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with that. But yeah, foreign policy, immigration, Latin America, environment. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. I did at least look through it. Apologies if you wanted me to actually do a real breakdown, but I didn't feel like getting into it. But I did put the link in the chat there, so y'all can click on it if need be. Oh, I think I've said my piece. So I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day, everything else like that. And like I said, I think I'll take another couple of days off to get everything, to get other work done for school and stuff like that. I think that's all I really have to say. Is there anything else you want me to cover? Anything else? You want me to go into more detail about the American Solidarity Party or anything else? I'll just wait. I know that there's a delay. Let me stop sharing the screen real quick. Yeah, more corporations are people too. Lol. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people do say that. And it is kind of ridiculous. Okay. Well, I think I've said my piece, so I will give my props to my audience, as I always try to do. So, Will DeMarco, thank you. Manny, Red Dundonian, Autarkic People's Republic, Rod Dog, Red Dundonian, Fiero Angela Requiem, Temujin, or Temujin. Let me see here. Oh yeah, Boom. Who else we got there? Ole was in the chat as well. Commando 333. Just double checking to see if anyone else was in the chat-a-rooney here. Sklar Scalp. Or Scar Scalp, sorry. American Nosbowl. Gabriel. Like I said, I'm just trying to make sure I give everyone a shout out here. I'm not trying to be rude by doing it that way. But yeah, thank you very much, folks. Yep, Noj is dead as well. Yep, see you later. I hope y'all have a good rest of the day, and I think we'll keep it there. So let's go ahead and put the old outro here. I'm going to go ahead and unplug my mic. That way it doesn't do the double audio thing, but we'll see if that doesn't happen this time. All right. Y'all have a good one. See you later, and goodbye.
Thank you.